right, it's just after 1:30 a.m. Here on SABC. Thank you very much for joining us. If you're joining us from SABC 2 or DSTV channel 404, we appreciate you choosing 404 or SABC to take you through the elections 2019, and we do hope we've been doing a good job for you. All right, so I want us to take a look. Right now, we're going to be looking at the graphics. We're going to be keeping up to date with where the scores, where the results are, where the parties are, up to the minutes, till the early hours of the morning. All right, we're going to look at the National Assembly there in Gauteng. You'll take a look at that if you look on your screen there, and you'll see that at the moment, when it comes to Gauteng National Assembly, 51.2% of the VDs counted. The ANC sitting at 53.7%, likely to change. DA at 24.3%. The EFF sitting at 13.2%. You would have heard Floyd Chivambo of the EFF saying that, you know what, when it comes to Gauteng, they're likely to increase. So we'll see, and we'll keep up to date with that indeed. Now, taking a look at KwaZulu-Natal, you'll see that the ANC is also looking quite comfortable there. There's quite a huge gap between the ANC and the IFP at the moment. So the ANC comfortably there at 54.9%, the IFP 17.2%, DA 13.2%, and then the EFF sitting at 9.1%. The other parties combined sitting at 5.7%, and we're talking about a 50.4% of the VDs counted. So just over 50% of those votes counted. We're going to move on to Limpopo then, and yes, see a very comfortable one there for the ANC. They've already started to celebrate there in Limpopo, although still quite a few votes need to be counted still. You can see it's 43.7% of the VDs counted at this point, at a 58.3% voter turnout. The ANC sitting at 77.4% of the votes in Limpopo at the moment. EFF sitting at 11.9%. I do know that the EFF would have thought they'd be going a little bit higher in that point, but let's see once all those voting districts have been counted. I'm sure they will go up quite significantly from that point. All right, let's move on to Mpumalanga. We've had a number of issues coming out of Mpumalanga, to tell you the truth. There had been allegations of vote rigging. We'd seen IEC officials with some of the ballots in their vehicles. A lot of things had been happening, and there was some of the votes were not counted correctly. But in any case, this is what's happening in Mpumalanga at this point. They're quite ahead in terms of counting. 74.5% of the VDs counted thus far. ANC comfortable again. 70.2% of those votes coming in. EFF coming in at 11.6%. The DA 10.2%, and FF Plus coming in fourth at 3.2%. The other parties combined at 4.6%. All right, let's move on to the next province then. We're taking a look at the Northwest. Let's see, the ANC looking quite comfortable, and they're quite far with those votes as well. 79.7% of the VDs counted, the voting districts counted. 58.9% voter turnout there. 64.8% for the ANC. EFF at 16.8%, the DA 10.6%, and the FF Plus coming in at 4%. The other parties combined 3.8%. So that's in the Northwest. Not very much change, I expect, in terms of the fact that they are sitting at 79% of the votes counted thus far. Moving on to the Northern Cape then. Here comes the ANC with 57.9% of those votes. The DA 24.8%, and EFF coming in third at 9.5%. FF Plus 3.4%, and the other parties combined at 4.5%. That's at a 96.2% VDs counted. So they're nearly done with their counting at this point. So it's likely to stay sort of as it is at the moment with those percentages. Let's move on then. Now, the Western Cape, of course, DA coming in at 52.2%. They've led, and it's done. I mean, it's 90% of the VDs counted at this point, which means that it's pretty much going to stay this way. ANC sitting at 31.2%, and then coming in third is the EFF is 4%, and the FF Plus at 3%. The other parties combined in the Western Cape, 9.5%. All right, so that's what it's looking looking like at the moment. I'm sure some of the parties are happy, some aren't so happy. We've heard already from some of the smaller parties, and they hate that we're calling them the smaller parties. We've heard a lot of them saying that they're not happy with how the elections are going. Some of them even saying they're going to ask for a re-election or a rerun. All right, we're going to go back to The Rock in Pretoria, where my colleagues are still there and still standing by, keeping me company. Is Tsepiso Makwetla and, of course, Imphiwe Ngcongwane. Tsepiso, good evening. Good morning, rather.
Good morning, Flo, and it is rather difficult to remember the time of day, isn't it, when we have been looking at that leaderboard for the hours that we have been. Of course, as you can see, if you cast your eye here to the IEC Centre on the floor, the Rock Centre, it is fairly quiet. We'll take you there in just a moment. As you were going through those results, of course, Renesh Dawaj, who's part of our research department, we were looking at the Northern Cape, and you can see where the big votes for the EFF is situated. Kamaraka, and I want us to zone in on that later on to look at why there's a significant increase of the EFF vote there, Renesh, and also we're going to talk about those floating votes. But for now, let's take you back to the floor. Natasha Piri, our reporter, is standing by. There are still some parties who are up, hard at work, trying to make sure that we get the figures right and that everything that is being reported by the IEC is tallying what they have found. Natasha?
Well, very good morning to Tsepiso. Of course, just yesterday, earlier on, we saw those various political parties complaining and accusing the IEC of not running free and fair elections. They're also demanding that the IEC actually rerun, or rather have a rerun of, the votes. But I'm actually joined by a gentleman from the ATM. Cisse, thank you so much for joining us. So we saw yesterday various political parties came together accusing the IEC for rerun. You've given the IEC a deadline until 9 a.m. this morning to actually confirm if they will be, recounting these votes or not. I mean, just talk us through that whole process.
Yes, they should, and they are already sitting with all of our queries. We've logged all our queries throughout the day yesterday, so they know what we're talking about, and we do expect a concrete response to our quarrels about everything that has happened on election day. Especially issues such as scanners not working, the ink being easily removable, especially that has really put doubt on this year's elections, and that is why we are calling on the IEC to relook at the incoming results, because we do believe that a lot of indiscrepancies happened, and as a new party and as a party that just won a seat in parliament, we're supposed to be celebrating right now, but instead we are putting in action our chant, which we were chanting throughout our election campaign, that said we need to put South Africa first. So immediately we are already putting South Africa first by collaborating with all of these parties that are agreeing with what we are saying, that these elections cannot be called free and fair with all of these discrepancies that happened throughout the day, by the way, and countrywide as well. It's not that we were focusing on one province. We've received all these queries throughout the country in all the various voting stations, and like it's really concerning for a young democracy like South Africa. It's also very concerning for for the freedom of the people and for the political right of all of the citizens of South Africa to go out in numbers and vote. So it means with everything that has happened that there are cases where people voted multiple times, scanners were not working, and all of those things. It cannot be that we are still reporting over those issues after 25 years of democracy.
Thank you so much for your time. Let me just rope in another party that was actually not happy with this whole process. I'm speaking to Godfrey Makamu from the African Covenant Party. You've heard what your counterpart had to say. He talks about discrepancies, but you've also accused the ANC of somewhat tampering, with this whole voting process. Do you have any tangible proof of that?
Morning, Natasha and all the viewers at home of SABC. I won't be speaking on behalf of any political party. I'm here as Godfrey Makamu, a leader of African Covenant, one of the peaceful and orderly political party. I must say, before I even air my view, that I'm very much disappointed about the way the process has been led to this stage. We have been trying by all means to do the damage control. Firstly, we happened to find out that there are other voters' roll that were not stamped. We raised the issue with the IEC, and we expected the IEC, of course, to address the issue. And of course, up to now, they never came back to us and tell us how far. The only thing that we know is that the issue has been submitted to the commissioner as a recommendation from the PLC, of which we noted. But I want all South Africans to know that whatever it has been reported on air, even the question of the ink mark is something that we've been raising with the IEC, and then we have been told that it's neither here nor there, and to such extent that today is only that they went out nationally and confirmed that yes, such kind of issues are there. So that's why as African Covenant we are very much disappointed, and we are calling on IEC to get their house in order. They must take this as a challenge. They must not take this as an emotional outcry. We are speaking facts here. We are speaking...
Talking about facts, do you have proof of all of this?
Yes, we have collected all kinds of proof, and we are ready to challenge the IEC. And if they are matured enough democratically, they will have to sit and address this issue. And I want to say it clearly that I'm not going to dwell much on the question of evidence, but we have them on hand, and we will be able to produce them at the right time when we have to take a legal route. But as of now, I won't dwell much into the issues that we have already submitted to the legal department of IEC.
You also spoke off air about a meeting that you will be having with the commission or officials from the commission. Can you just give us a bit more detail?
Remember, as we said, we have already submitted our complaints to the legal department of IEC. We are expecting a response tomorrow, and after that is then that we are going to check how matured are they democratically, because we are defending the democracy here. And if really they are democratically mindful, they will listen to this and they will nullify these elections, because their credibility is now challenged. If we have got an ink that it was reported that it can be easily be erased, and we even said the zip, it can be scanned from one VD, and after that you can go to another VD, it scan again. It's not linked to a system whereby it will reject. That one is a fact on itself.
Well, you use very strong words there, talking about nullifying these elections. Can I just also bring your counterpart into the picture? Thank you so much, Ndate Godfrey, for that. Let me just bring in the last guest that we have here of the African Security Congress, Andile Xoli, who's you're also not happy, clearly. But I mean, Andile, if the IEC does not come back with the response that you want, what is your party going to do about this?
Angiqale ngibulele sisi SABC. Uba ngabana i-ANC i-IEC ayibuyi ukuthi ndiyacinga ukuthi nathi singabantu singama-South Africans walapha e-South Africa, so mangabani ngabuyi sizawuhlala phansi thina singalama-political parties sibone uba senza njani, because njengoku bekufanele basithathe ama-steps but asikwazi uthatha ama-steps singekahlali sibonisane. I-solution yena angekhe ngabikho because yonke into yenziwa ngumntu iphinde ilungiswe ngumntu futhi.
Okay, let me just leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Let me just quickly translate that to our viewers. Well, Tshepiso, there Andile from the African Security Congress saying that a solution actually needs to be found. And of course, if not, they will deliberate as all, these political parties and go back to the drawing board. But I mean, the previous speakers speaking out there saying that these elections will have to be nullified. And of course, just speaking to one of the IEC officials off air earlier on, he had said to me that the IEC will actually, deliberate and meet up and speak about these issues and, of course, deliberate. And, of course, we'll just have to wait for that deadline, that 9 a.m. deadline that we will be seeing shortly this morning. As for me here on the floor, it's back to you in studio.
Thank you very much, Natasha. And just wrapping up our broadcast here at the Results Operations Center of the IEC in Pretoria. As you could see, very, very quiet there on the floor. Most of the political party agents having done what they could at this point. Some areas, of course, we're still hanging, especially the big metros, but we are whittling down the results that we're seeing in the Northwest Province we mentioned earlier on. We've been going through various parties, and what you can see on the map there, big blotch there of red in Khamagara Khonyani. That is a municipality in the John Kailo municipality, district municipality near Kuruman, and largely that's been an ANC area, and there's been an improvement of the EFF. I believe that the last time they had close to 7%, but now that's well above 9%. Ranesh, but the reason we are looking at the Northwest, we've been speaking about the Freedom Front Plus, the fact that there has been a strong showing by them, the Northwest Province. Let's look at that population. A lot of farmland in this area. Is this probably also why they'll be able to garner as much support?
I think you are referring to Northern Cape, by the way.
Northern Cape, indeed. And it's a very important distinction. Very important distinction.
It's been a very long night.
It's been a very long night, yes.
So the Northern Cape has the lowest in terms of voter registration statistics, very sparsely populated province. I think around 600,000 voters, but very little people, lots of farm area, lots of desert as well. That particular part of Northern Cape where the EFF has scored, like you rightly say, in previous elections between 6 and 8%, and these elections they slightly increased that. It is an ANC stronghold. The second party in that area is the DA, and the EFF is third, but the EFF is slowly making progress in that area. But
do you think what we're seeing here is an express reaction to the land issue? Because we know there's a great divide, especially what the EFF is proposing from a policy perspective, and what the Freedom Front Plus is certainly pushing for.
I think it's possible, but I also think it's probably poor people that are from the area, and as we all know, the EFF is a pro-poor party. So I think my reasoning would be more on the pro-poor issue than the actual land.
Ranesh, in 30 seconds, those floating votes, where are we expecting them to go?
They probably would have stayed away from Wednesday's ballot. Long story short, those people aren't fully satisfied with what they're seeing, what they heard during the entire election campaign trail, what the parties offered them. So I think instead of actually going out to vote, they said, let me sit at home, watch TV, enjoy the public holiday.
All right, thanks a lot, Ranesh Tawaj. SABC Research Department. That's it from me here on set with the crew. But let's take you back shortly to Simpiwe Ngongwana and Natasha Piri so that they can say goodbye to you from here at the Rock Centre in Pretoria. We expect that board is going to raise a number of issues and perhaps some heckles, as you know that this is when the final numbers, big metros, are going to start streaming in. So let's get you to say thank you and goodbye to them, Natasha Piri and Simpiwe Ngongwana.